Hello everyone, I'm a former forensic officer. Today, I'd like to share with you a mysterious story I heard from a police officer friend. While referring to my old diary and adding a bit of embellishment, it's based on real experiences, so I hope you can feel the sense of realism. And I'd like to thank my two grandchildren, who have turned this story into a video. Without further ado, let's get started. One evening, my friend John, who was working at a police station, received an emergency call. The caller was a young mother, who said her son had disappeared while playing in a nearby park. The mother was in a panic, her voice trembling with desperation. She pleaded for help, her words rushed and almost incoherent. John, sensing the gravity of the situation, immediately responded and headed to the scene with his colleague Paul. When they arrived at the park, the mother ran up to John, tears streaming down her face. Her eyes were wide with fear, and she clutched at John's uniform as if it were a lifeline. "Where is my son? Please help me," she cried, her voice cracking under the strain. John gently pried her hands away, trying to offer a reassuring smile despite the mounting tension he felt. He calmly assessed the situation, asking for details about where the child was last seen and what he was wearing. With the information gathered, John and Paul began their search. The park was large, sprawling across several acres with numerous playgrounds, wooded areas, and hidden nooks. It was the kind of place that was both a child's paradise and a searcher's nightmare. As they combed through the area, the sinking sun cast long shadows, making the search more challenging. As time passed, the sun began to set, casting an orange glow over the park. The sky gradually darkened, and the park took on a more ominous atmosphere. The playful shouts of children had ceased, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the distant hum of traffic. John and his colleagues continued searching with flashlights, their beams cutting through the growing darkness. The mother's anxiety grew with every passing minute, her face etched with lines of worry. She paced back and forth, wringing her hands, her eyes darting around the park, hoping for a glimpse of her child. John, too, felt the weight of the situation pressing down on him. His stomach churned with anxiety, and his heart pounded in his chest. He couldn't help but imagine the worst-case scenarios, each one more dreadful than the last. The pressure to find the child was immense, and the fear of failing gnawed at him. Despite his years of experience, he felt a deep, unsettling fear that tonight might not end well. The search extended into the night, with the park now shrouded in darkness. John and his colleagues continued their efforts, their flashlights flickering like beacons of hope in the vast blackness. The child's voice and presence remained elusive, heightening the sense of anxiety and dread. Every rustle of leaves or distant sound made John's heart skip a beat, his senses on high alert for any sign of the missing boy. At that moment, an elderly man approached John quietly. From a corner of the park, his weathered face was calm, his eyes reflecting years of wisdom. "That child may have been taken by a ghost," the old man said, his voice barely above a whisper. Startled, John listened to the old man's story. According to him, there was a rumor that a child who had gone missing in the same park decades ago reappeared as a ghost. The old man's words sent a chill down John's spine. He had heard his share of ghost stories, but hearing one in the middle of a search for a missing child was unsettling. Skeptical but curious, John and his team continued their search. Suddenly, John's flashlight began to flicker. It wasn't due to low batteries, but the light behaved strangely, sending chills down John's spine. He scanned the surroundings and noticed a faint light, emanating from behind the trees. His heart pounded even harder as he motioned for his colleague to follow him. John and his colleague moved towards the light. They saw the faint figure of a child, but as they approached, the figure vanished, leaving nothing behind. For a moment, John thought it was a hallucination, but he was certain that both he and his colleague had seen the same thing. His mind raced with questions and doubts. Had they really seen a ghost? Or was it a trick of the light and their overworked imaginations? As they were about to leave, the child's figure appeared again, this time more clearly, staring at them. John couldn't help but call out, "Are you the missing child?" But there was no response. The silence was eerie, and the child's gaze seemed to pierce through the darkness, adding to the surreal atmosphere. John slowly approached the child with his flashlight. But once again, the figure disappeared. Repeated occurrences heightened their sense of unease. making the ghost story seem increasingly plausible. Each time the figure vanished, John felt a mix of frustration and fear. His hands trembled slightly, and a cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He had never experienced anything like this in his career, and it unnerved him deeply. John recalled the old man's words about ghosts trying to convey something. Following this thought, John decided to cautiously follow the ghostly child's appearances. The child led them to an old abandoned house on the outskirts of the park. The house stood eerily against the backdrop of the night sky, its silhouette like something out of a horror movie. Upon reaching the abandoned house, John and his colleague decided to enter. Navigating through the dilapidated building, they eventually found the missing child. Sitting calmly in a dimly lit corner, the child seemed unusually composed, as if someone had been protecting him. His calm demeanor was almost otherworldly, and it struck John as odd. Back at the police station, John and his team questioned the child. The child recounted being led to the abandoned house by a strange light, and mentioned seeing a kind-faced man within that light. John and his team couldn't help but consider that this man might have been a ghost. The boy's description of the kind-faced man was vivid, and it matched the old man's story eerily well. Further investigation revealed that the abandoned house was once an orphanage, where many children lived. Records indicated that a child had gone missing from there and never returned. John and his team speculated that the ghost of this child had appeared. The more they uncovered, the more they were convinced that something supernatural had occurred, even after the case was resolved. John and his team couldn't forget the incident. Despite their extensive experience with various cases, this inexplicable event was unique, whether the ghost truly existed or it was all a series of coincidences. The story persisted among John's colleagues. It became a tale told among officers, a reminder that not everything could be explained by logic and reason. This incident left a lasting impact on John. He realized that some things were beyond human control and understanding. It was a humbling experience, teaching him that the world still held mysteries that defied explanation. The sense of wonder and fear he felt that night stayed with him, a reminder of the limits of human knowledge. John and his team continued to investigate the case, re-examining the surroundings of the abandoned house and historical records. They aimed to identify the kind-faced man seen by the child. Their investigation uncovered remarkable details. The house, once an orphanage, had a male caretaker who perished in a fire. According to legend, this caretaker continued to protect the children. Even after death, John and his team concluded that this man's spirit had safeguarded the lost child. This experience instilled a deep sense of gratitude in John and his team. They realized that while science might not explain everything, unseen forces could still provide help. The realization that the kind-faced man might still be watching over the children brought a strange comfort to them. They felt a sense of connection to the past, as if the caretaker's spirit had bridged the gap between the living and the dead. John reaffirmed his pride in his role as a police officer. He recognized the importance of accepting and being grateful for unseen assistance in their daily duties. This experience had made him more open to the unknown and more appreciative of the mysteries that surrounded their lives. The lesson from this story is that there are inexplicable phenomena and unseen forces that can lend a helping hand. As police officers, they encounter various events, but these experiences are part of the human journey. John often reflected on that night, feeling a mix of awe and gratitude for the mysterious forces at play. If you found this story intriguing, please like and subscribe to the channel. Additionally, we welcome your stories of mysterious experiences and advice for our middle school grandchild who edits these videos using a handy editing software. See you next time.